Well, great news. I got my car back. So they told me that they had replaced the three-way valves. He said that there was one that was malfunctioning, and so it wasn't sending coolant in the car to like cool the motor and like the battery and all that stuff. And then the other one was having like it wasn't communicating correctly with the rest of the car, and so they just went ahead and replaced them all. He said that they did drive the car about 50 or 60 miles to make sure that everything was working correctly. The service tech at the Bakersfield location, he actually told me that his wife has a Vinfast and that her car did the exact same thing 3 weeks after they bought it. They had to bring it in, repair it, and it's been 3 months and she hasn't had any problems since then. So I'm thinking positive and hoping that that will be the case for me. For right now, I'm driving on my way home, very excited to get home and see my dog and sleep in my own bed after a very long 2 weeks. Reacquainting myself with driving an electric vehicle after driving to and from Arizona in a gas car again. Just forgot about the regenerative braking, so kind of have to get back on this learning curve with the new car.
In about 15 miles, take exit 5 onto Copus Road.
Sorry about that, GPS. I think I need to like uninstall and reinstall my phone from the car because I can't get it to, like I can't use it for a phone call, which was very annoying, trying to call my brother and let him know that I was not in fact dead, even though I had just ignored his last 10 calls. So I'm going to pull over here in a minute and do that and get that all taken care of. Yeah, I will say, this has been, obviously, it's frustrating having a brand new car that broke down. But I think that Vinfast as a company has handled the whole thing as well as they possibly could. I mean, yes, it took hours, but they did send a tow truck. They picked up my car. And yes, it is out of pocket, but they are supposed to be reimbursing me for my rental car. And also I'm supposed to get $100 a day for each day that the car was in service in their in the service stations. So, as long as that all goes through, I think I will harbor no ill will towards Vinfast for this whole mishap. I guess I'll share, I had a little bit of a kerfluffle dropping off my rental car. I rented from Enterprise, and I'll just say I rent cars all the time because I travel a ton for work. And I mean, this year alone, I've probably rented like a dozen cars. And so this car, I got to their office like 10 minutes before they closed, and I was already just stressed out and frustrated and just wanted to get on the road and was in a rush. And I know that I'm sure they were also in a hurry and just wanted to close and be done for the day. And so the first car they wanted to give me was a Dodge Charger, and I was like, I am not driving a Dodge Charger to and from Arizona. That's going to be a fortune in gas. And so I'd asked if they had something a little more economical, and the guy was like, well, I do have a Camry, but it hasn't been cleaned yet. And I was like, oh, I don't really care if it's dirty. It's going to get dirty anyways, right? I'm like, as long as it's not like filthy and gross, like I don't care about dust. And so I took the car, and I will say, like, when I went over it, I did feel that there were a lot of little like dents and dings on it, because the guy and I went over it together, and I was like, I pointed out several, and he was like, no, you don't need to worry about any of those. And I'm like, okay, cool. And this is the one time, the first and only time that I have ever not opted to do additional insurance coverage on a rental car. Guys, I will never, ever, ever, ever not pay for extra insurance on the car again. It is worth every freaking penny, because when I went to return this car, mind you, it's a black car, and like I said, when I picked it up, I was rushing, they were rushing, it was like sunset, so it was like, low light. And I've had the car for 2 weeks, and I didn't even notice, but there was like a little dent on the bumper, like, I don't know, maybe golf ball sized, and it had like a little scratch on it. And then the little like kind of plasticky parts that go underneath the side doors of the car, there was a little bit of like I don't know, like not even a dent, like the plastic was just like a little bit like misformed on both sides. Like I said, I didn't even notice, and they were like really inspecting the car very closely, and then they're telling me that I was going to be pursued and I was going to be charged for the damage, and I'm like, absolutely not, because I know for a fact that I did not cause that damage. And so I had to call down to the office where I rented it from, and I was like, look, like, let's be real, like, you guys didn't have time to clean that car, nobody inspected it, like, it didn't go through like proper procedures on your end, I believe. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay for damage to a car that I did not cause. And so fortunately that did work out. They did agree not to pursue me for those damages, but boy, that's a lesson. Like, I've never once had an issue with a rental car, never been, any problems with damage or anything. And obviously I didn't cause damage, but I will never again not take the extra coverage, because it's worth it for the peace of mind, just in case something does happen. I mean, like, I guess that my insurance would have covered it, but I don't want to be out at the $500 deductible on damage that I didn't cause. Like, that's ridiculous. So fortunately, like I said, that worked out, not being charged. And once it was like handled, I will say, like, the guys that worked at Enterprise, he was very nice. And, we were chatting a little bit, and it all worked out. But I am excessively happy to be behind the wheel of my car and to be on my way home. I cannot tell you guys how much I just want to sleep in my own bed after, weeks of uncomfortable, weird hotel room beds, Airbnb beds. And also, I can't wait to see my dog. That's the hardest part about being on the road for work so much, is not being with my pupper. But yeah, so far everything seems to be working great. The AC turned right on, and the car's nice and smooth, and everything, they were even nice enough to clean it for me, because I know that it had gotten a little dusty. I do park in, like I said, I have a dirt driveway at my house, so it was a little dusty at home. So happy to get my car back in better shape than I left it. And once again, just really, really impressed with the Vinfast customer service experience. Like, I think that, 100% honesty, like I shared in my last video, yeah, I am nervous. I do have some trepidation about driving this car. I'm scared to get stranded. But I do take comfort in knowing that if it does happen, they'll take care of me, and they'll do what they need to do to make sure that I'm taken care of. And so I'm willing to continue with this experience and with this experiment, and I think it's going to be a good one. Like I said, this car is really comfortable to drive. Like, getting out of that Camry, I mean, nothing against the Camry, but it really sucked going from my Vinfast, which is, it's the interior, it's a luxury car. I think it's, to me, it feels as nice as sitting in my dad's BMW. In fact, I drove my uncle's BMW to Arizona a few years ago, and I didn't even like driving that car that much. So I actually think that I like driving my car more than I liked driving his BMW. I couldn't tell you what model it was so long ago, but it was an SUV model, and it was, I'm sure, expensive. Probably cost more than this one. So to me, this is, it was hard to kind of go, and the Camry's a nice car. It's nicer than my 10-year-old Ford Fiesta for sure, but it wasn't great going from like my super fancy, brand new, beautiful Vinfast into a beat up old rental car. So I am happy to be back in my car. And I am on the highway right now, so I'm letting the ADAs do their thing. And honestly, compare and contrast, like, I literally just drove like 300 miles or so. Well, I don't know how many miles, but it was like 5 hours in the Camry, and its ADAs are much choppier, much jerkier than this car. So I say it again just because I know that the fact that it has been a complaint with other drivers of the Vinfast, that it can kind of pull the car in the opposite direction that you're trying to go in. But again, it's, the car's following the lanes on the road, and it can only do the best that it can. It's a computer, not a person. It doesn't have all of the information that the human driver has, which is why it's not a fully self-driving vehicle. But I don't think that it's any worse than any other car that I've driven that has those lane control features on it. Like, in fact, I think like I said, it's a lot smoother than the Camry. The Camry kind of jerks you all over the place. And there are some, at one point I was driving on the 10 East at night, and that, it's like a ton of semi-trucks, and there was like the big concrete barriers along each side of the road, and like I felt like the Camry was possibly trying to kill me because it kept trying to veer me into the concrete barriers. So again, no no complaints on the ADAs on the Vinfast. So my drive home is about 130 miles. My battery says that it has 243 miles on it. There's a spot at the midway mark where I usually stop and have a bathroom break, and there is an electric car charging point there. I have obviously not used it because I haven't driven this car this way before, but I think I'm going to check it out when I stop for the restroom. I will see how many kilowatts it is and like how reasonable it might be to charge there for future trips, because I do drive back and forth from the coast to Bakersfield a few times a year for work. Plus, you know, I've got a couple friends over here, so I occasionally come for friendly visits too. And also, you know, Carrizo Plains is around that halfway mark between the coast and Bakersfield, and I heard that there's some really great wildflowers happening out there right now, and I would love to drive out and see the flowers and know that I have somewhere that I could charge so that I can get home. Because it's definitely, you know, back to that whole EV learning curve of like figuring out what my range is and figuring out, you know, where to charge and how to charge and make sure I don't run out of charge. I watched I listened to a few YouTube videos today on the drive. Obviously, I'm not watching while I'm driving. Being safe, guys, let's be real. But I was listening to a couple of YouTube videos of guys who are like using these portable battery chargers and solar, what do you call it, solar panels, so that they can kind of charge their cars on the go. Just because I do like to camp, I like to go to remote places, and I would, you know, I mean, to me, I'm like, if I'm going to go camping for 3 or 4 days, my car is going to be parked, like, maybe that's a worthwhile investment looking into. There was one guy who, he had like these like fold-up solar panels, and he could just like lay them like across his windshield and across the roof, and he had a Tesla, and he was using some kind of a battery charger, so like the solar goes to the charger, and then the charger goes to the car. So I'm going to be doing some more research into that. Probably not immediately, probably that'll be like a next fall project after my busy work season. But I would like to see if I can figure out some kind of solar charging backup system for this car, just because, one, I mean, I love the idea of running my car on a totally green, non-polluting power source like the sun. And two, you know, it's a great backup just for safety and convenience to have something like that. So if anybody knows anything about how to set that up, or if anybody can point me to some videos that might have great information for me about that, I would be super excited to watch that and hear that information.
In 2 miles,
yeah.
Take exit 5 onto Copus Road.
Well, I think I'm gonna just go ahead and drive on home from here, maybe turn up the music, and maybe tomorrow I'll do another video and update on how the drive was home. And I would really like to do like a whole like video just kind of going over the car and just showing you what it actually looks like inside and out. So maybe I'll get to that later this week. All right, thank you.